Today's conversation is titled Assume It As Done. That's the title of today's mind map. Now, this discussion, which is based on Neville's work, is going to be further woven into what we shared on Thursday's video, in which we spoke of building a relationship with the subconscious mind, and the elements that we pulled from the Master Key System, as well as the 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson, is further emphasized in this quote here that I synchronistically happened to find. And as I was going through Neville's information today, and one of the things that I like to do is study his information from 2 perspectives. Number 1 is the pathway to bringing forth what you desire, as well as the purification of mind, the oneness, the journey to unity, as we also spoke about, which holds the key to building this relationship with the subconscious, the oneness. And so the quote states, "Our mental scientists, psychiatrists, and psychologists of today refer to this region as the creative power in man, that everything in man's world is determined by the activities of the subconscious mind, that man himself has absolutely no control over the activities of this region unless he first gets into a relationship with it." So there it is right there. He says that man himself has absolutely no control over the activities of this region unless he first gets into relationship with it. Now, I want to further discuss this before we move on to the second part of this quote here. I always suggest to make the journey as valuable as the destination. So you have a goal, you have a vision, maybe you have a number of different goals. And the journey is revealing what's within the subconscious. And through the process of these revelations, as well as inspirations, you find what is within yourself as far as interpretation, programming, and you go in and change this programming, doing the subconscious work, whatever modalities that you want. He discusses revision. We talked about this last Sunday, or subconscious mind audios and self-talk, which is my favorite. And you change this programming to be more harmonious with the vision. So removing the unnecessary tension, inner resistance, impurities of mind, which bring forth excessive reactivity to doubt, indecision, fear, and so forth. We can look at it as it's not those elements, but our meaning or our identification that is stored within the subconscious that we seem to be identifying unconsciously to certain outer world experiences, people, environment, circumstance, information, and translating it over to inaccurate thinking or unnecessary reactivity. That's why I recommend cause and effect reflection, looking at your day each day and observing where this reactivity, tension showed up, and observe as you are expressing it, perhaps in unnecessary anger and frustration towards others, when we want to look within ourselves and say, where's the source within ourselves? Now, it's not to say that emotions should not be expressed. I'm certainly a big advocate for understanding and expressing emotions and not suppressing and repressing, as we had discussed a few videos ago in Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. We also stated that it was closely related to the alchemical process, spiritual alchemy, the transmuting of energies, and the spiritual transmutation one goes through on the journey, which Neville refers to, and he says it in his distinct way. Which, by the way, as I've been going through all this information from these authors, they all say it in their own ways. So we see it in our way, which is value the journey and the revelations on the journey. See what shows up as opportunities to make peace with these attributes in ourselves and evolve and align or ascend. And this is how we build a relationship. Because otherwise we feel a disconnect. We don't know why things are happening. Perhaps it's a form of fight or flight. If we don't understand things, one of the knee-jerk tendencies is to run away from it, to avoid it, rather than understand it. Now, it's not to say that we should overwhelm ourselves each day with understanding everything that shows up. A little bit more so each day, as I always say. A little bit more so each day. And you build this relationship. And not only do you build this relationship, which helps you realize this power that we have, but also it further allows us to go through our spiritual journey, what I believe that we are also here to do. And what does the spiritual journey mean? Well, there's many different interpretations to different people. I like the alchemical interpretations related to what I call purification of the mind, which is removing the delusions and the aspects of separation, bringing us into higher unity. And obviously, this will be reflected in how we relate with others, with people, with circumstance, information, and so forth. And he states, for here is a region that they all call the subconscious. Others call it the unconscious. And still others speak of it as the collective unconscious. But they claim for it a creative power that molds the outer world in harmony with the inner arrangement of itself. So what we want to do is change the inner arrangement within ourselves. It is revealed in what we say when we talk to ourselves, when we also speak to others, and how we relate to the outer world experience. It's revealed in our behaviors, in our reactivity, in our tension, and what we want is to go on this individual journey. Know thyself, learn about ourselves. So they give it structure, they give it reality, they give it form, and they claim its structure determines the outer structure we observe and call the only reality. That any modification in the internal structure of this deep region results in corresponding changes in the outer objective world. But then they leave us at the mercy of it unless we can find the trick of entering into a relationship with it. Well, I personally don't believe that it's a trick, and I don't think that he was implying that it was a trick. It was a figure of speech. We know what it is. We have to go in and make peace with ourselves. We have to forgive. This is the art of repentance, or revision as he speaks of. We must realize that we are recreating our past again and again and again, or we're creating from our vision. And as we've been discussing, looking at it from the perspective of creation is already complete, so we're either revealing our past or revealing what we consciously desire. So this holds the key then to valuing the journey and the destination, seeing it as one, and also connecting it over to building a relationship with the subconscious. Now this requires awareness, and what we do is we increase our awareness. And we look at it from two perspectives. The awareness that I speak of, on the one hand, refers to, I am aware that there's this pattern occurring. I seem to be playing out this pattern that reoccurs in my business dealings, in my relationships, and so forth. I realize that if I can change this pattern subconsciously, the patterns will change. That's one way of looking at awareness. Another way of looking at it is what we refer to as pure awareness, which is, as stated here, which I put together, it is possible to be aware without identifying with anything, without dwelling in thoughts, and without putting any identities or states of mind on self. This is what we also call pure awareness. It is our natural state of existence. Neville Goddard refers to this as I amness. From this I amness, we either consciously or unconsciously identify with identities, such as I am Joseph and I am an entrepreneur, I am this, I am that, whatever we put after we say I am. Same as the thoughts, and same as the labels, or whatever we put on ourselves and others and so forth. When we recognize that we're the ones giving meaning to everything, then we have brought forth a higher degree of awareness. We have a higher degree of awareness. Before we didn't know we were doing this. So now we are more aware. Wait a second, I'm putting meaning onto things. So we try then, consciously, to change the meaning. But sometimes we fall asleep, or so it appears. We seem to forget that we are identifying. Automatically we go into different states of mind, as he refers to, and then it plays out this theater. Harmonious theater or convoluted theater in life. So we want to practice going into this pure awareness. So this is the power of meditation or any kind of practice, and subconscious mind work even, that allows us to release from all identification. The simplest is meditation or prayer or something where we can just go into a state of pure being. Now, this might seem challenging if we are so identified with our thoughts or our identities. But what I would say is it's extremely valuable to do this every day, because what I have found by doing this, by practicing this, that it is a lot easier to, in the moment, if something were to happen in which we experience tension, reactivity, frustration, we can recognize that we are not that tension, we are not that reactivity, we are identifying with it. And as he had stated in many of his discussions, we fall into different states. So he refers to working with imagination. So we reimagine experiences in our past to have gone in an ideal way. We talked about this in the last Sunday's video, Revision. I recommend you watch that. And what we want to do is change our relationships to what is bringing forth excess reactivity within ourselves each day. Change it every day. The act of repentance, revision, that's what we do. And through this working with imagination, as he refers to, we build a relationship with the subconscious mind, the deeper aspect of ourself, the part of us that is in all places at all times, as we spoke about in the last video, and that somehow synchronistically pulls people together, resources together, and connects them in creative ways to bring forth your results. We want to allow this kind of expression. Now, if you're an artist or a musician or a performer, I'm sure you will agree with me that what you aim to do when you perform is get into the flow, allow the subconscious to express, because it's all within you. Everything that you've ever learned, plus the connection to the divine, is within you. And you want to allow it to express, allow. And if for some reason we're not able to allow it to happen, the way we want to look at it as an opportunity, as I had suggested in the last video. Tension and reactivity, unnecessary tension and reactivity, is not something to shame ourselves about. It's something to understand ourselves about. We've been discussing this as we referred to Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. We want to understand the emotions. What are they revealing? Tension and reactivity? They are teachers. Everything's a teacher. We talked about this in the last video. You can find inspiration and revelation all the time. It's always there. Based on how you feel, what you think, what appears, that is revealing what is being expressed from the subconscious. And it poses an opportunity to build this relationship. And he says that what you experience in imagination is an actual creative act. It is a fact in the fourth dimension of space and will make its appearance in this three-dimensional world just as surely as planting a seed will result in the growth of a particular plant. So we're planting it in the subconscious. And we're either planting it based on what we fall asleep to and we unconsciously represent in imagination, thus impress that on the subconscious to recreate it again and again and again, going in on a loop. Or in that moment we recognize, we say, wait a second, I might be going into a different state of mind right now. I'm going to go into pure awareness. I'm going to release from this. Sometimes you've heard me say this in some of my videos. What are the things that you can do with whatever shows up when you have reactivity? Well, you can change how you relate to it. You can accept it the way it is, or you can do something about it. Acceptance the way it is going into pure awareness. It doesn't mean that you want it to remain that way. What it means is you're releasing from the unnecessary identification, thus binding that outer world experience in that moment. And from there, maybe you might do a combination of things. Maybe you might do something differently. Or maybe you will find a different relationship to it. You'll see it differently. You'll reimagine it to be different. This is what we refer to when we work with revision. Reimagining our experiences of the day that didn't go forth in an ideal way, revealed by unnecessary inner resistance, tension, and reactivity. Not shaming ourselves, but simply from a non-judgmental perspective, reimagining them, ideally in state akin to sleep. Although we don't need to be in state akin to sleep, we just have to assume it as done. Now, assume it as done can be looked at as high self-confidence. A person can assume it as done. Traditionally, we say when they have high self-esteem, high self-confidence, high self-trust. I would say they have a great relationship with their subconscious mind. That's another way of saying it. Now, in order to be able to do that, we have to have seen a lot of times that it has worked. We were able to change ourselves. Upon trusting ourselves, take inventory of our past. How many things have we done as a result of trusting ourselves that may be nonlinear, may not be the things that other people are doing or they're suggesting, but some way, somehow, we figure out our own way to bring it forth. This builds our self-confidence. We also want to couple that with faith. Faith, as Neville Goddard stated, is loyalty to the unseen reality, in which he was referring to here, the fourth dimension of space, in which all things exist, which, when we commit to, externalizes in, as he states here, appearance in this third dimensional world. He says, once you have planted the seed in your imagination, do not uproot it by being anxious about how it will be accomplished. Each seed has its own appointed time. Some seeds take a few days, others a little longer. Now, I want you to feel the degree of calmness, assurance in which he put these words together. I'm a fan of words because I come from a background of direct response marketing, consultative selling, copywriting. I studied it for years. I did it for entrepreneurial purposes. And then I started getting fascinated with poetry and excellent communicators and understanding what they're really implying and the symbolic interpretation or the symbolic meaning behind the words. There's symbolism behind it. And this symbolism speaks to the subconscious. So look at how he states it here. He says, each seed has its own appointed time. No argument, no rush, no tension. Some seeds take a few days, others a little longer. He says it with such calm. If a person has this kind of belief system within their subconscious, they will have little to no inner resistance show up on the journey to realizing their visions. And he also goes on to further say, feel confident. He uses the word confident. Assume it is done. That what you have planted will appear in your world. Your imagination will draw all that it needs to make your dream an actual reality. If it takes others to play a part in order to accomplish your end, your imagination will draw that person into your drama to play his or her part in the sequence of events. We talked about this in the last video. We look back at the entrepreneurial journey, not just with my own, but speaking with others. We have a goal, a vision, a definite chief aim. You say you want to make a certain amount of money. You want to build a certain business. And then all these people seem to appear. And as we remove this inner resistance by practicing going into pure awareness, which can be done through meditation or through the act of revision, because what we find is that as a person revises or changes the limiting beliefs and interpretations and assumptions within themselves, the subconscious aspects, it's easier for them to recognize this pure awareness. It's easier for them to go into the pure awareness real time. This has been one of my big realizations when it comes to leadership and consulting. When a client or a team member is in front of you, as a leader, we want to be detached from our own biases and our interpretations. We want to be more in this pure awareness. We want to listen and understand. And then we receive the hunch and inspiration of what to say. And it happens to be the right thing, at the right place, at the right time. And the other person benefits from it. This is a result of this relationship that we speak of. And he says, feel confident that what you have planted will appear in your world. Your imagination will draw all that it needs to make your dream an actual reality. So as mentioned, I like to look at his work from two perspectives: bringing forth what you desire, and also what he refers to as the promise, which I refer to as one with. And this can also be looked at as building a relationship with your subconscious. This journey is about purifying the limiting beliefs and interpretations as much as it is about bringing forth a desire. As a matter of fact, it happens both at the same time. Because when a person commits to a destination, let's say they want the relationship or they want the business, they're going to probably see aspects of themselves revealed in the theater, played out in how they relate with people, environment, circumstance, and information. And they're going to need to look at integrating those aspects within themselves in which they have not made peace with. Otherwise, they may find themselves being unnecessary tense or reactive. And what that does is it brings us into different states of mind, as he had said, that there are unnumbered states, and the occupant of one state is not better than the occupant of another. For each is a brother in the highest unity, and all are one in the body of God the Father. But the state, the attitude of mind to which you most consistently return, constitutes your dwelling place. If you dwell in self-pity, you will express the state. But by occupying the state, you are not less than the one who has ambitions to enter the White House or the Vatican as the Pope. The individual desiring an ambitious state is not greater than or less than the one who does not know he is in a state and remains subjected to it. So we speak about this being the example. And then as we live this way, and I had concluded this in the last video, we seem to have people show up that seem to think the way that we think. Synchronistically, we find more relatable people. Well, we always had relatable people. It's just that now we are more conscious on what we want to relate to, and it is being expressed, and we are finding those relationships through the cause and effect reflection, the mindful cause, planting of the seed in the subconscious, and the effects, the fruits. One of the things that happens on this journey is we also find great joy and fulfillment in bringing others into their ideal state of mind. And I believe this is part of the fabric of who we really are. At our core, we represent this unity. We spoke about it in the last video. U.S. Anderson discussed it. And so we'll weave it into today's conversation as well. And one of the things we realize is to not shame and condemn the person in front of us, but rather understand them. And sometimes we might feel tense and unnecessary reactivity when we're consulting with them. We feel this reactivity towards. If we see it as an opportunity to release from it, go into the pure awareness, as I had discussed earlier, we will then find the accurate meaning and interpretation. It'll appear that the words flow through us. We'll say the right thing at the right time, as mentioned. And that theater will play out, and then all of a sudden that person will go into the ideal state of mind. And they have now been released from that limiting state, that highly restrictive state, which for whatever the reason may be, they were in that state. But you had, through your own transformation of your own state or maintenance of your own state of mind, had it externalized as them also in that state of mind. Now, this is what he's referring to as your imagination will work out the means to realize your dream while your conscious mind sleeps. Because to think about all these things and what to do, what to say, how to adjust your body language and all these things can be very overwhelming. What we want is to operate from a place of congruence and authenticity. This congruence and authenticity is the concept of self that we've been referring to, the self-image, as discussed in the book Psycho-Cybernetics. That self-image is stored in the subconscious. And we can't help but express or be. All those things are expressed via that self-image. And how do we change the self-image? Through the journey, through the what I refer to as purification of the mind. Via tension, inner resistance, reactivity, we find the opportunity to change how we relate to it, or go into the pure awareness in that moment, release from that tension and inner resistance and reactivity, which can bring us into different states of mind. And thus we dwell in those states and experience them from those states of mind. So when we see it as opportunity, we say, okay, I no longer fear. I no longer resist. I no longer run away from these emotions. Rather, I want to understand what they mean. As we had discussed from Stephen R. Covey's book, 7 Habits, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Well, also, seek first to understand your own subconscious mind, and then you will understand others. You will understand yourself more. That's why I like this journey to a destination. We always have goals. We always have visions. We're always moving somewhere. We always desire to bring one thing forth or another. What we also want to do is value the journey and see these important elements like tension and reactivity and inner resistance as opportunities. This will allow us to feel more self-confident. As he had stated, imagination is taking care of all these things, because once what we imagine has gone into the subconscious, it takes care, it rearranges the outer world to reflect. And some of the reflections must be based on past thoughts or imaginal acts. A lot of times unconsciously, if we say, we don't desire to see what is brought forth on this journey to bringing forth success. Such as if a person says, this unnecessary friction in my business, I want it to go in an ideal way. So now, from this day forth, we don't see that as a problem. We see it as an opportunity. I know we say this a lot in personal development, but I felt it was very important to discuss it from a different perspective. And although I say make flow a priority, I also said in the flow video that I discussed, which I'm going to put a link in the description to that, is identify the flow breakers and find the opportunity in understanding why they're breaking the flow. And from the understandings of why they're breaking the flow, make the change within. Not only will this build this inner relationship that we were speaking of, but it will also allow us to be more present, be more aware, which when I also brought up Daniel Goleman's book, I also brought up Olivia Fox-Cabane's book, The Charisma Myth, in which she said the 3 elements of charisma is power, presence, and warmth. Power is related to direction, warmth related to love and understanding, and presence can be looked at as this awareness, heightened degree of awareness, and if needed, in the moment, be able to go into pure awareness, so we can release from all the tension and reactivity in the moment. Now, this is something that was also discussed, although from a different perspective, in the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. They were able to do this in some of the most challenging experiences. Athletes do this. Artists do it. Being a consultant and an entrepreneur for many years, we do it as well. We all do it. We all have this opportunity to do it each day. Practice it. And if we have these experiences where these theaters play out, we don't need to shame ourselves. We can release from that unnecessary reactivity of dwelling, and at the end of the night, revise. We have awareness in the moment that there's a pattern, there's something playing out. And we have an opportunity to revise at the end of the night. Watch the video I did on revision, which is simply to reimagine it happening in a different way. And then when it changes, and you change the next day, you further understand how this works even more so. And then you further build this inner relationship. And as you further build this inner relationship, it's easier to say, assume it is done. So let's weave this all together with an affirmation. We can say, I realize that I have the ability to understand tension, inner resistance, and reactivity in the moment if it shows up. In the moment, I'm able to release and go into pure awareness. From this pure awareness, I'm able to understand how to respond mindfully. As a result, I maintain my ideal state of mind, which is one with my vision. As I continue to do this, I find even more opportunities. As these opportunities are revealed through the inner resistance, tension, and reactivity, I'm able to work with the revision ability to go back into my imagination and reimagine it from an ideal perspective. As a result, I maintain more flow, more harmony, more peace. As a result, I have a greater degree of congruence and faith in my direction, representing power. As a result, I'm able to understand, feel more love, and have warmth as I integrate with the people, environments, circumstance, and information. I also find a higher degree of presence. And as I continue down this journey, I understand and value the journey as much as I do the destination. I value the vision of my desire and the internal spiritual alchemy process of realization. If you want to copy this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.